Just ahead this week on Money Matters. A venue brimming with opportunities as Korea and China look to close their free trade deal. We'll take you there. Samsung Electronics takes back the top spot in the global smartphone market during the first quarter, beating arch rival Apple. And how to attract Chinese tourists and loosen their purse strings ahead of some key holidays. What stories matter in Asia? We'll look to the changing landscape of business in the region next on Money Matters. Hello everyone, I'm Hans Schadl. Thank you for tuning in to us once again this week. Let's begin now with some of the top business headlines across Asia. Volatility just might be returning to the world stock markets after the upward trend of the past 2 months. In Tokyo, the Nikkei index fell back below the 20,000 mark late last week amid concern about upcoming corporate earnings reports. And in China, the Shanghai Composite Index hit the 4,500 mark last week before retracing a bit below that level. Investors are betting that the Bank of China will ease up on monetary policy and cut interest rates to try to boost economic growth. Korea's stock market, meanwhile, is up 9% for the year, and the benchmark Kospi finished April above the 2,100 mark. The Korean won has been gaining in strength compared with other currencies around the world, especially as the Japanese yen continues to weaken. According to the Bank of Korea, the won rose by about 2.8% to the U.S. dollar since the beginning of the year, finishing at 1074 won per U.S. dollar at the end of April. Korea is under pressure from the United States to avoid weakening the value of the won, and experts are predicting the won will soon strengthen to 1050 won per U.S. dollar. Low oil prices are causing a big drop in the total value of global exports this year. The World Trade Organization has now cut its growth forecast for merchandise exports. The dollar value of petroleum exports this year has sank by about 50% compared with last year. Korea's gross domestic product increased by 0.8% for the first quarter of this year, placing Korea as having the fourth most rising share of GDP this year among the G20 countries. The rising GDP has now created expectations that the Bank of Korea will not lower interest rates any further for the time being. The baseline interest rate here in Seoul is already at a record low of 1.75%. And Asian countries have agreed to promote the use of a currency swap deal to try to ease the way for local currency usage in trade settlements and avoid too much dependence on the U.S. dollar. The agreement was reached on Sunday during the ASEAN +3 summit of finance leaders of the ASEAN member states and Korea, China, and Japan. The member nations also decided to promote ways to strengthen financial cooperation among Asian countries in an effort to prevent future external shocks to their economies. Time now for our front page segment. Back in February, Korea and China initialed their bilateral free trade deal. It has many in the business and trade industries expecting some big opportunities. On today's front page, we get a look at how companies and the government are gearing up for this new window of growth.
A large-scale event to promote trade and investment between Korea and China took place at Korea's largest convention center just outside of Seoul last week. The event, dubbed Korea-China FTA Business Plaza, brought in some of China's leading companies, including Huawei, Baidu, and Sinopharm. Roughly 360 Chinese companies and 1,500 Korean firms set up booths for business consultation, making it the largest event held for trade with a single country. Approximately 4,000 discussions for exports took place, with 13 memorandums of understanding being inked and one on-site contract being sealed.
한중 FTA가 2월 달에 가서명을 했고 이제 곧 정식 서명을 할 계획으로 있습니다. 우리 기업들이 우리의 가장 큰 시장인 중국 시장을 진출할 수 있게 지원하고자 이번 행사를 마련했습니다.
The main goal of the event was to promote exports for firms in Korea and China. One of the most prominent fields of interest so far in bilateral trade with China has been information technology. Last year, some of the main products traded between Korea and China in that sector were semiconductors, worth some $26.2 billion, display panels worth $16.4 billion, and TV sets at the value of $500 million. But there are other fields in Korea that have a better outlook in light of the trade pact with China. Those would be consumer goods, agricultural products, parts and components, medical treatment, franchise companies, energy, and the environmental sector. Home shopping is another realm that both companies in Korea and China have high hopes for.
我们是全国最大的，应该说是全国第2大的家庭购物频道。那我们是可以将韩国的非常多的美容和家居用品引到我们的国内去进行销售的。那这个对于我们经济的那个促进是有很大的作用的。
Lu Xiaoping, a manager visiting from a Chinese company, said he is taking part because of his interest in Korea's environment-related technology and other Korean firms in the field.
首先，我觉得韩国企业这个做事特别真诚、特别认真。第二呢，韩国企业有它自身的这个优势，这么多年来这个经验的积累以及这个制造业相关都比较成熟。 所以，我就希望呢，以后也能多跟韩国企业在一起合作。
What was noticeable during this event was that an overwhelming number of buyers for Korean consumer goods were invited. With the most populous market sitting right next door, the economic gains Korea can win over from tapping into the consumer goods market is considered monumental.
중국은 인구가 가장 많이 있고요. 저희가 이제까지 선형기를 생산해가지고 중국에 가장 많은 그 대수를 판매를 했습니다. 커피라든지 여러 가지 뭐 요구르트라든지 다른 여러 가지 그 일회용 그 컵 용기 관련해 가지고 시장이 상당히 무한히 많이 있기 때문에 중국을 선택했습니다.
It's not only that. Korean local governments have been eyeing China's food market, promoting Korea's goods as being high in quality and safe.
깨끗한 농산물, 안전한 식품의 이미지를 들고 대중국 수출을 역점적으로 추진하면은 강원도 농산물이 아마 대대적으로 중국 시장에 진출할 수 있을 것 같고.
Following the initialing of the Korea-China Free Trade Pact in February, many other projects to boost trade and cooperation have been taking place in various fields. The government is also running something called the China Desk that aims to help companies make inroads into new markets and tackle non-tariff barriers small and medium-sized firms face. What kind of benefits will Korea see once the bilateral trade pact is officially inked?
두 나라가 가까워지면서 우리 한국 제품이 중국 공공시장, 이제 정부 관계가 좋아지면서 이제 공공시장에 들어갈 기회가 많이 늘어난 거에 대해서 조금 기회라고 보고 있습니다.
There's big potential for Korea to enter the Chinese consumer market. And actually, we already see that Chinese consumers are eager to buy Korean products. I think it is an important opportunity for Korea to focus on innovation, spendings on research and development.
The Korean government sees the populous Chinese market as one the company should break into, ahead of other competition. And with this goal in mind, it will likely continue to support all efforts for growth and expansion into China.
Our keyword this week, signaling a new self-indulgence among older women, the urban granny. And this new term has come into vogue among retailers, advertisers, and marketing gurus, all of them targeting sophisticated women in their 50s and 60s. Now, urban grannies are not just any woman over the age of 50. They're an affluent segment of women who spend large amounts of time and money not only on their grandchildren, but also on themselves. Beauty products, fashion accessories, health food. These are some of the products sought after by so-called urban grannies. And we can expect to see more and more companies rolling out more specialty products, read expensive luxury items, targeting this newly identified group with plenty of disposable income ready to spend. Time Time now for our Bits in Biz segment. And of course, trends in business evolve rapidly by the day. And we now have some of the most eye-catching stories online here with Im Yoon-hee. Hello, Yoon-hee.
Hello, nice to see you again. So today I have for you some of the most interesting headlines being seen in economies tucked away in different parts around the world. Let's have a look at what's taking place this week. Now, kids aren't the only ones who enjoy a new toy. Some of the world's richest have recently been showing off their new toys, but with all that money, you might be surprised to see that they enjoy some of the more simpler toys in life. Now, Microsoft's Bill Gates and the American business magnate Warren Buffett, two of the heaviest hitters when it comes to the world's richest. They've been known to go head-to-head in a game of giant ping pong. And Carlos Slim, considered the Warren Buffett of Mexico, is another billionaire with a love for the bolero, which is a simple wooden toy also known as a cup and ball. So toys don't have to be high-tech to be entertaining. Now, another member of the world's richest billionaires is Jack Ma, founder and chairman of Alibaba, which is China's largest e-commerce group. Last year, the company launched a record initial public offering in the U.S. But earlier this year, Ma expressed his concern over the current status of the company. And as an attempt to promote efficiency within, he's recently imposed a hiring freeze, claiming that Alibaba's 34,000 employee workforce will stay this way until next year. He stated the reason being that the company has grown too large over a short period of time, putting the efficiency of Alibaba at risk.
Yoon-hee, that's very interesting. I know Jack Ma has been taking some heat from Wall Street recently, and the stock price has even fallen, I think, as low as 20% from the highs at the beginning of the year. So he's trying to respond to some pressure there. Exactly. And he's going about with this new measure. We'll see if the traders and investors are pleased with that. Let's turn to another company closer to home, Samsung Electronics, and they had some belt tightening earlier in the year, freezing wages, but now apparently their first quarter has some very positive results. Right. Thanks to the success of their smartphones. And the newest addition to their smartphone family, the Galaxy S6 and S6 Edge, look to be giving them another boost. Have a look. With this year's first quarter at an end, the results are in, and Samsung has taken back the crown as the world's largest smartphone vendor. Now, this is due largely in part to the successful sales of their mid-range to low-end devices such as the Galaxy A, E, and J series. Now, this figure doesn't include the initial sales of the newest member of the Samsung family, the Galaxy S6, which has warmly been received around the world. Now, of the 345 million units of smartphones sold so far this year, that number up 21% from the same time last year, Samsung has sold 83.2 million of those units, meaning they have a 24% hold of market shares. Now, although that number is down compared to previous more successful performances, it's still enough to set them ahead of their competitors Apple and China's Lenovo Motorola. So what does that mean for quarter two? Well, so far, the S6 series is now being sold in 20 different countries around the world, with some expecting the sales figure to surpass the 70 million unit mark, which is very good news for Samsung. Yoon-hee, apparently the S6 is doing especially well in India, selling like hotcakes there. Right, so India is the third largest smartphone market in the world, and Samsung has been able to maintain its lead in that specific market, even widening the gap between Samsung and the number 2 player, Micromax. Now, Samsung has also had to speed up the manufacturing process in India. Currently, the S6 series phones are being manufactured in Vietnam, with plans to release the phone in India this June. But to meet the tens of thousands of order demands already coming in, Samsung will have to pick up the pace. Well, that's good news for Samsung. Staying with South Asia here, Yoon-hee, you have a serious story from the region as well. Right. A little bit of sad news. So the earthquake that shook Nepal 2 weekends ago has had a detrimental effect on Nepal's tourism industry. Now, tourists are now fleeing the country, and the road to rebuilding the tourism path looks to be a long one. Last year, nearly 800,000 tourists visited Nepal, fueling the tourism industry, which makes up 8% of the economy and provides for 7% of all jobs within the country. Now, reconstruction of Nepal is expected to come with a price tag of over $5 billion, but the lasting effects, including the impact on the tourism industry, is estimated for now to be at the $10 billion mark, with some expecting that number to grow even more. But let's move on to some other news. Now, it's no breaking news that Chinese tourists make up a significant part of the tourism market, and amongst those vying for Chinese tourists is, of course, Korea, Japan, and the U.S. But recently, Europe has reported record amounts of money spent by Chinese tourists on luxury goods in the country. This comes as a weaker euro allows for more purchasing power for Chinese tourists, making luxury goods cheaper in Europe than in China.
But all of this is possible due to the easier accessibility of visas as well. Countries such as the US and France have made the visa application process much shorter and the validity much longer, leading to more approachable visit to such countries. Now, Turkey has also recently added a 30-day visa obtainable online. So making it much more, I guess, accessible for these tourists, interested tourists.
Yoonhee, very interesting how this combination of weaker currencies overseas and easing bureaucracies also generate some tourism. In fact, we'll be staying with this theme of Chinese tourism in our next segment. Yoonhee, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Time now for our Asia in-depth segment. And of course, here in Korea, China, and Japan, the month of May offers a welcome set of holidays for those wishing to travel abroad. In fact, it's considered one of the best periods of the year for the tourism industry. Here to tell us more now is Arirang. Hello, Arirang.
Hello, that's right. In Korea, there's Labor Day, Children's Day, and other public holidays. In China, there's a 5-day break around Labor Day, while in Japan, there's a series of holidays in early May called the Golden Week. Now, during this period, a lot of Koreans go overseas to travel, but many more come to Korea from Japan and especially China. Since last year, though, Japan has begun rivaling Korea as one of the top destinations for Chinese travelers. I went out to find out more.
Last year, the number of foreign tourists visiting Korea stood at over 14 million, with almost half of them coming from China.
Over 6 million Chinese tourists visited Korea last year, accounting for almost half of all foreign visitors. They're known for spending big, so just how much is coming out of their wallets and where is it going?
The number of Chinese tourists visiting Korea has been on the rise. This has helped boost the local Korean economy, with various sectors such as retail, duty-free and accommodation benefiting from increased demand. On average, Chinese visitors spend double that of Japanese and American tourists, and their expenditure has been growing steadily since 2007. Their number one area of spending is shopping, with 60% of their travel budget going towards it.
一些同学带点东西，因为很多人都想，就是觉得韩国的产品还是很好的，就想让我们帮带，特别多的人。
因为韩国的化妆品好像听说质量蛮不错的，所以想带一些回去。
Cosmetics are by far the most sought-after Korean products among Chinese tourists. According to a survey on roughly 1,000 Chinese visiting Korea, the most frequently bought items were cosmetics, followed by clothes and accessories. A lot of this spending is said to do with the expansion of Hallyu contents and celebrities, along with the belief that Korean products are of high quality. Based on figures from 2013, Chinese tourists spent around $7 billion in Korea, accounting for roughly half of the total spent by all overseas visitors to the country.
성장과 실적 성장을 동시에 추구해서 관광 시장의 어떤 활성화를 도모하기 위해서 노력하고 있습니다.
But recently, there's been a change in destination for many Chinese tourists. They're increasingly turning away from Korea and toward Japan.
Here in Japan, with the cheaper yen, an expansion of duty-free stores and the relaxation of visa regulations, the number of visitors from China is expected to see further growth.
The number of Chinese visiting Japan had remained steady at around 1 million per year for the last few years. But in 2014, this increased to 2.4 million, an astounding 83% jump from the previous year. Also, this past January, there was a rush to get tourist visas, with some 250,000 Chinese signing up for travels to Japan during the February New Year holiday. This at one point led to a shortage of visa application forms. Over the week-long Chinese New Year holiday, roughly 450,000 Chinese tourists are said to have visited Japan, spending a total of $930 million. So what is the reason for this recent rush to Japan?
そうみたいですね。ビザが緩和されたっていうのが一つ大きな理由だと思うんですけど、今日本の政府もそう海外から来る人っていうのを増やそうと、オリンピックが。
The other major factor is, of course, the weaker yen. It means that the cost of traveling and shopping in Japan is much lower than before, and for high-end cosmetics and fashion accessories, it's 10 to 30% cheaper to buy it duty-free in Japan than in Korea. Given that shopping is one of the key motivators for Chinese tourists, there's cause for concern about the cheap yen. For now, Chinese tourists for the most part prefer Korea over Japan, but it remains to be seen how long the effects of this will last. For one, those in their 20s and 30s make up a growing proportion of visitors. Unlike their counterparts in their 40s and 50s that prefer expensive luxury goods, these younger travelers are more price-sensitive and conservative in their spending habits. Then there are those dissatisfied with their experience in Korea. As a result, the number of Chinese tourists revisiting Korea is rather low.
地方，比如说什么江南呐，这些地方想体验一下当地人的生活呀，坐下地铁啊，甚至乎我想去坐巴士，这样就比较麻烦了。
This is why many say a multifaceted approach is required to make Korea a more attractive destination for Chinese tourists to revisit.
재래시장이라든지 또 공연 관광과 같은 것들을 좀 활성화시키는 것들, 축제와 같은 걸 활성화시키는 것들이 한국 관광을 더 풍부하게 만들 수 있는 전략이 될 수 있을 거라고 생각합니다. 관광 상품의 질을 높이고 새로운 컨텐츠를 계속해서 만들어내는 이런 전략들이 필요하다고 생각합니다.
So, Arirang, so interesting to see how much money Chinese tourists spend when they visit Korea and Japan. And I'll bet they're dropping lots of cash in other countries too.
That's right. According to a British business publication, Chinese tourists spent nearly $500 billion overseas. Now, for perspective, Korea's total exports is a bit over $570 billion. So we are talking about a huge sum of money here.
And then, of course, we see incentives to try to get tourists here in Korea, get them spending money. The cultural exhibition is very interesting. Other sorts of initiatives as well in this regard.
Sure. So there are a variety of methods that they're using. One department store, for example, recently held a panda parade for those coming during China's Labor Day holiday. And they've also implemented Alipay, which is a mobile transaction service used by Alibaba, China's largest e-commerce company. Now, with Alipay, all you have to do is scan a barcode generated on its smartphone app to make a purchase, so it lets Chinese customers make quick and easy payments. Now, we also mentioned that Japan eased visa regulations for Chinese tourists, relaxing requirements for a 3-year multiple entry visa and also allowing 5-year multiple entry visas. Now, 2 weeks ago, Korea also began issuing 5-year multiple entry visas in addition to the existing 1- and 3-year visas. So there are multiple multiple changes being introduced to attract Chinese customers.
With all this technological innovation, Arirang, it is not our parents' tourism anymore. We're looking at a new area here.
That's right, absolutely.
All right, thank you very much. That's Arirang with Asia InDepth.
Thank you.
And that will wrap things up for us this week here on Money Matters. We hope you enjoyed the program. Of course, we'll keep bringing you plenty of stories as they unfold in Asia and give you a sense of the changing landscape of business in the region. I'm Hans Schadl. Thank you, as always, for watching.